Okay, folks, welcome to Fighter Pilots Anonymous. We want to do something different with this show. I don't want to stand and just yell about what's wrong with Top Gun for the rest of my life. Sticky. Are you interested in that?
I'm interested in it, but I don't want to yell about Top Gun anymore.
Okay, all right. So,
but there's some fine points to it. It's okay.
Hey, I got my
Navy.
Yeah, right. I got my good friend here, Sticky Strickland here. We're gonna two old fighter pilots. Let's say we're gonna talk about some
Fossils,
some fighter pilot stuff anyway, and the idea of the show is to, I guess, get into and let people know what's it like to be in a fighter squadron.
That's not a bad idea.
You've got Thunderbird experience. I don't. I've got a lot of other different types of experiences, and we want to compare those and I guess kind of put them in one big ball and have people get a sense of what that's like.
Sure, that's a great idea.
So what we want to do here is partially start to explain why we are drinking these beverages we are drinking and what we're doing here. So
Frosty beverages,
Yeah.
I might add. Adult frosty beverages.
right. So the first part is this idea of the first, I guess, teachable moment is to teach folks about the beer light. We have in the squadron, a beer light. Squadron had liquor and beer in the squadron, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Does that sound like an accident to you?
It does, actually.
Right.
Well, the other part was it's the junior guys or gals' job to make sure that we never ran out of that.
Right.
A snacko was the most important position, and in fact, you know, we had at Aviano one time we had a colonel who was a snacko, and we loved him because that man understood exactly never let the refrigerator go dry or the whiskey never flow.
He made sure how to get things done. But the beer light is a concept that includes the idea of we can't drink while there's flying going on.
That's
right?
correct. Absolutely.
The beer, the
Verboten.
liquor is locked away at the bar, and it's waiting, but it's not being used or consumed until, generally in a fighter squadron, the last plane were to land. Right.
Correct. Out of legalities, and that's the discipline, by the way. I mean, if nothing, fighter pilots are pretty disciplined, at least flying. In some cases, maybe not other things, but
Sure.
But the flying, that's serious stuff.
Right. So the beer light comes on, and people are free to continue to work
Absolutely.
with liquor in their hand.
That's a true statement. In fact,
Which, as I say, it sounds really strange.
it's really kind of cool, actually, because it's one of the benefits
Right.
of, well, in a fighter squadron, the other thing is, Merge, you know that, is flying is about 90% of what your mind is focused on and what you do, how you try to further the goals of the squadron and be tactically sound and whatnot. But on the other hand, there's what they call additional duties. And it doesn't matter if it's Air Force or Navy, you got department heads and all this other. So when we're done doing the serious stuff, that's when the beer light came on, because now you can go fill all your additional duties, the paperwork, all this stuff that just mattered, but it wasn't the flying part of it. It wasn't the tactical part. And you could enjoy a frosty beverage
Right.
with it.
Or, yeah, like you said, come in, continue to do your work. People would debrief. There's still a lot of things going on, but you were allowed to drink. And I would say, in general, on a school night, if you will, it's Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, and you're night flying.
Pretty tame.
People aren't going crazy at the bar back there, right? Would you say
Correct.
that's right?
Correct. But I will say, and I've got a good story if you want to hear one.
Sure.
Okay, so 4th Fighter Squadron at Hill, and this is in Utah. And I was flying an F-16 out of the range. The airplane had a problem. I had to divert into the divert base. And so I landed safely down there, and I call back to the 4th Fighter Squadron, and I can't get anybody on the phone. And I can't. Finally, somebody answers the phone, and I go, "Where is everybody?" Well, they're in the bar. And I finally figured out that I was the last one to land. They were waiting for me to land, and I still had like a 2-hour drive to get back up to the base.
Yeah.
But they were all in the bar appropriately, having a frosty beverage and, you know, doing what fighter pilots like to do.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So you can't drink in the squadron until the last plane has landed, and then the beer light comes on, and each squadron had a beer light, like a literal.
Absolutely.
Could be where it was, I guess it's sort of up to the squadron, but there was somewhere visible that either looked like an old Milwaukee beer stein thing from the 70s, or who knows, but everybody knew that was the beer light. The beer light was on.
How about just the mugs in amongst themselves. So you've got a very appropriate mug as an instructor from the Fighter Weapons School out at Nellis Air Force Base, which is that's quite an achievement. And I'm telling you right now, I mean, you know, here I am. I've got a Panton Squadron mug with appropriate frosty beverage in it from Kunsan, Korea. So we usually would collect our mugs over the years from different places that we flew with, right?
And I just want to say these are heavy.
Yeah, they really are heavy. Right.
This is.
It's a labor of love because it's got some good stuff in it, though. I wouldn't want to give it up.
These are heavy, and I don't know if my left arm is going to hold up. I'm going to have to drink some weight off of this thing.
Fair enough. I think, shall we both imbibe it?
So, yeah, that's a lesson about the beer light. A very important part of, I don't know, I guess like you said, the culture of a fighter squadron. It was on Friday night. It was kind of let it rip. The beer light went on fairly early, again, after reasonable meetings and all that stuff were done. And people got into it pretty heavy, right? But during the week, not unusual to see somebody walking by, talking to the wing commander calls, whatever. They got a beer here, they got the phone to their ear, and they're doing their stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times, of course, it was a welcome thing for, say, the wing commander or the ops group commander or somebody else to show up around that time, too, because they'd get a casual opportunity to have a drink with some of the lieutenants and just get to know them better, which is great.
Right, yeah. No, and like you said, plenty of work got done, and for the most part during the week, there wasn't an overindulgence, I guess, of liquor.
No,
but
never.
But a pretty cool, like you said, thing that happened in the squadrons everywhere.
It could backfire on you every once in a while. I do have one. I'm full of stories, unfortunately.
Let her rip.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, I had the privilege to fly with the Thunderbirds, and we also had a little bar, and we had our mugs, and we had our beer light, just like every squadron, appropriately. So I was headed into debrief one day, and I went up there, and I was looking for my mug to put some adult beverage into it, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, doggone it, where'd that thing go and everything? So, I spied the wing commander's mug. And I looked at it, and I go, well, he just got reassigned.
Right.
So he got reassigned somewhere else. So of course,
he probably washes it. Someone washes it.
Somebody's. Oh yeah. Well, I did a little crud check on it, and it was probably the cleanest one up there, by the way. So I took the wing commander's mug down, and I had my back turned. I was filling it with my appropriate libation, and all of a sudden, this person came up the stairs behind me and says, "Hi, Sticky," and I turned around, and it's the wing commander's wife, and I was like, "Well, hi. How are you? I thought you guys got reassigned and had left." And she goes, No, I just came up to get his mug. And I'm looking at her with it full of my stuff, and I'm like, really? Okay.
Let me go get that for you.
Fair enough. So I grabbed another mug, I dumped it out, I rinsed it out, and I go, here you go. But so sometimes, you could get caught in an awkward situation. But the point is when the beer light was lit, it was a chance for everybody to, kind of relax, because on a standard day, how many hours you think we'd spend in the squadron?
Oh gosh, yeah, 10 to 12 easily.
Yeah, and it wasn't abnormal to do 14-hour days. So you're working your behind off. And this, the beer light was kind of a sacred thing to say, hey, it's time to keep working a little bit, but have a little frosty beverage. Right. Not overdo it, but I can relax.
And that was, I think, a key part of being in a fighter squadron was it was fun. It was people decided that, you know what, the fun is important, and we not need to lose sight of that and not just turn into all business all the time.
Yeah,
because you can burn out.
So my question to all my buddies all the time when they look back about flying, and particularly in fighter squadrons, was, did you ever look at the clock and wished it would speed up? And I always looked at the clock and went, I just wish it would slow down, because but I should go home every once in a while.
Right.
But I never looked at the clock and said, gosh, hope this day ends pretty soon. No, it's more like, how much longer can I stay here and do this job?
Right. So a pretty good overview of, I guess, beer light drinking in the squadron. It really didn't happen that much, like I said, during the week, but there was, you were certainly welcome to when the beer light was on, and it was an important part of the culture. So on from that, I wanted to now transition to some of the, a few of the flying things that went on. In the movie Top Gun, they talk a little bit about, and I think it's one of the things they do really accurately, I guess, that a movie can do, is talk about G's. Hey folks, just a little break here. I want to introduce this new topic that we're going to talk about, and that is G-forces. So Sticky and I are going to get into a discussion about G's, pulling G's to centrifuge. I want to give you a little bit of information so those not familiar with fighter aviation, can have a little bit of a head start or a little bit of an understanding of what we're talking about. So very quickly, under high G, the blood is leaving your head, leaving your eyesight, and this can cause incapacitation or unconsciousness. Okay, so we're going to mention a term, G-lock, G-induced loss of consciousness. So I'm going to have a video that's going to explain all this stuff in great detail, the equipment we wear, the physiology of the whole thing, the breathing that we do. This is all a major part of staying awake and staying aware when you're under G. So when we're under high G loads, 6, 7, 8, 9 Gs, this can become quite dangerous. It can become quite unexpected, which can lead to ground impact. So a scene that you saw in Top Gun, the Top Gun Maverick recent movie, of a guy actually G-locking in flight, and then Tom Cruise coming back and lighting him up with the radar and sort of waking him up. Yeah, that could happen. But that highlights the idea of once you go under G and you G-lock, lose consciousness, you're now sleeping for some period of time. Okay? We don't know how long that would take. So what Sticky and I are going to talk about are some instances where we experienced some high Gs and things that we did in our career, all to fight G-lock. We don't want to go unconscious. When you go unconscious, you go to sleep, and then you do wake up and have a bit of a physical reaction because the brain is now getting filled back with blood fluid, and things are starting to wake up and turn on in your brain that is quite unexpected and lasts for a few seconds, maybe less than 30 seconds, but you're still kind of unconscious and not really aware of what's going on. So it can be very dangerous. And so the stories we're going to discuss have to do with G's, G tolerance, and things that we've experienced under G. So the big thing to understand is when we're pulling that amount of G, your heart is trying to pump blood up in your head. Your nugget cannot keep that blood out without some breathing techniques that we'll do, and I'll discuss those in the G awareness video. So for now, for the discussion that Sticky and I are going to have, we're just talking about the idea and things that happen under G, things that happen when I was at the centrifuge, which is a spinning ride that you go on as a fighter pilot to practice and see if you can withstand this amount of G forces. So it's a very serious idea, very dangerous thing, which every pilot must learn how to combat and breathe properly under high G. So that's the things that we'll talk about. If you want to know more, I'll have a follow-on video that you can reference to talk about just G specifically and all the things, equipment, breathing, the physiology of it that go into it. All right, now we'll get back to our discussion and we'll feed into the idea of G's and G tolerance for fighter pilots. My best G story is when I went to centrifuge training, and I did it after flying the F-16, right? So back in the 80s when I started, centrifuge wasn't a thing yet.
Oh, really?
And so
okay. All
I
right.
went off to my squadron, and they said, okay, we're now opening up and these were all the guys in Europe. I was in Germany.
Yep.
And they sent us to the centrifuge in Soesterberg in Holland, the Netherlands, which was an American air base, and it had a centrifuge. And so I show up at the centrifuge, and there's all my buddies from training. There's like 3-4 other buddies from training, and we're in a class, if you will. So they put us in class, and they spend, I don't know how much, maybe a good part of the day academics, and it's now time to get into the centrifuge.
The spin and puke.
And we decide, hey, let's put the first guy in there who looks like he should be able to handle this the best.
Okay.
And what they told us at the time was the more fit, the shorter you are, the more strong, muscle, you're going to be able to squeeze your body parts and keep the blood up in your head, and that's the guy who's going to just run away with this thing. It'll be no problem at all.
Right.
So we have a guy in our class that fits that description, and we put him in first. And now he's in the centrifuge. This thing is going round and round, and
it's videotaped.
Being videotaped,
Correct.
and we can see it live in our ready room, if you will. We're all in the lunchroom or what have you, watching this thing, and we're all intently watching what's going to happen as he does the centrifuge.
Yeah, probably eating lunch too, like a great ham sandwich.
No, we weren't eating yet. No, there was no food yet. And so we're not feeling the greatest about doing this thing, right? So we're all watching, and here he goes, and they start running through the profile, and now it's time to do the 8 Gs for 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Profile, the test. You had to pass the test.
Kind of build you up.
Right.
And you're exhausted by that time.
8 Gs, yes, you've done a couple other things monkeying around in there. Now it's time to get in there and do the 8 Gs for 30 seconds. And this guy does it. He goes halfway through, and he's a classic, he G-locks, so we call it.
Chicken noodles.
He totally goes under. And then there's it's not over. I'll have some video in about that, about people coming out of being G-locked. They're disoriented.
They do the funky chicken.
They start flopping all around, and they slow the thing down, and they obviously talk to him. We are stunned.
Because you're next.
We are now, we're in the room. We've sent the strongest, bravest soldier we got in there first.
It's only a matter of attrition.
And we're like, we are screwed. He can't even handle that. And so they talk to him for a little bit, and they spin it back up again, and it's like, hey, you just got to do this one test, and
they
whatever.
want him to pass.
Yes, that's right. Just one more time, and he, the same thing halfway through, and and literally when a person G-locks, especially in the centrifuge, I mean they slide down the seat. I mean it's bad. It's a bad look.
It's ugly. Yeah, it isn't your prettiest moment. Not even close.
Yeah,
it's all on film.
It's not going to be your.
And we all have our films of it, by the way.
Yeah,
we do.
It won't be your Instagram photo. I lost mine. It's one of my saddest things. I've lost my. Anyway, I wish I had my video. So they put him in again, and fails again, and so they go, well, okay, just hop out.
More training.
And so we're in our room, and he comes out of the centrifuge. He comes in the room there, and the room has a bathroom in which he is going straight to. Well, it turns out that he had the flu. Earlier, so he wasn't feeling right.
Nice.
And so he was somewhat dehydrated.
He was going to muscle through it. Good man.
That's right. He was somewhat dehydrated, and that's again another huge G tolerance thing. Is did you get proper sleep? Are you properly hydrated? Are you ready to go? And he was not, and he didn't mention this, and he G-locked, and so he's on the way into the room. He's literally like tiptoeing. And he says to us, he goes, dudes, I shit my pants.
Oh, no way. And he really?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding. Sweet.
So we're like, oh, even better news.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're really excited about this now. Everybody's all pumped up.
That's right. He didn't divulge the fact that he was sick at that point, but we were like, oh, so not only did you G-lock, you crapped your pants, and, who's next?
Yeah. Me.
Sticky, get in there.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You sound like you want to get
So I do have a good story, too. We all have, it just happens. But, so, again, this was, they're not all Thunderbird stories, but we had an opportunity to always give our crew chiefs on the Thunderbirds a ride in the backseat of the F-16. And at other squadrons and wings, it usually was much less frequent, but because that squadron is so small and tight-knit that generally you were going to give your dedicated crew chief a ride in the airplane. And this, typically if you ever do these what are called incentive rides, you sit down and brief, the young man or woman, and you're going to say, look, I can dial it up or I can dial it down. You have to tell me what.
Yeah. What do you want to do?
What do you want to do? And it was bring it on. It was bring it on. I went, oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, fine. And he's just all, testosterone, the whole 9 yards. But he's kind of a small guy. So we take off and we go out. And this is, by the way, in clean F-16s. There's nothing hanging on them. So they will do 9 Gs really quickly and really fast. And so
they will hurt you.
Yeah. So we do some I do, some aerobatics and loops. And the whole time, asking him, doing okay. And he's like, bring it on. You're weak. You bring it on. And okay, sounds good. And by the way, because of the nature of that squadron, we had cameras in the back seat. So this is being filmed. And so anyway, so do all this stuff, and he's all doing great and everything. Finally, I go, well, okay, we're going to dump the nose, and I'm going to basically simulate a defensive move and a defensive break that's going to put 9 Gs on the airplane, and then I'm going to roll out and unload on it, and then we'll be going pretty fast and doing it. He's like, bring it on, because
he's told all his buddies he's going to pull 9 Gs. Right?
Precisely.
This was made known to everyone before he gets on the airplane.
And all the buddies are the Thunderbird crew chiefs on the ground.
They
who
want
are
to know the
waiting
results.
to view the video when he lands.
Right.
So what happens is, and kind of unbeknownst to me, as I do this, I put 9Gs on the airplane, and I'm grunting and groaning too, and I'm going around the corner and everything, and then I unload, and I wait about 15 seconds or so, and then I go, how you doing? And he's like, yeah, awesome, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, wow, he's made of steel. So we do a few more things, and we come back and land. We taxi in. All the crew chiefs are all around him and everything, and they're like, thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm like, thumbs up. He rocked.
Yeah.
He gets out, we get out, we all go into what's called the perch at the Thunderbird hangar, and they slap that video in there, and they're like, man, dude, you rock and everything. And they get to that turn, and he is out so fast, and he is just like a puddle of mud in the back seat.
Right.
And the timing was such that he woke up, and he did the funky chicken. He's doing this, and he wakes up and has enough situational awareness to go, yeah, and he's just sitting there, and he was flat gone for the whole thing. I looked at him, I go, you don't even know what we did, do you? Because you were out. So it's easy to put somebody out, and especially, if they're not trained, because the centrifuge was pretty good training, right?
Yeah, for sure. But you, as the pilot flying, I think you sort of know where it's coming. There's some advantages, I guess, to flying.
Oh, absolutely.
Pulling.
What was the other thing? So what was the other thing that generally happened after the centrifuge? Is you come in, you may go to the bar and go drink, but all of a sudden you look at yourself and you've got what are called Geasels.
Yeah, G-measles.
Right.
Literal like skin, blood has popped out of your skin and has now created these little measles.
Yeah, all your capillaries have broken, and you're like, I'm gross. Is this normal? Of course, you don't want to show anybody.
Am I gonna die?
Right. And then when you get to the bar, everybody's like looking at each other going, oh, you look like me. Okay. So that's why I remember we called the centrifuge just a controlled car crash.
Yeah.
Because it really, it's pretty hard on you.
Right.
I don't think I could do it today.
Yeah. We had in USAFE at the time in Europe, when I flew towards the end, we got the Block 50 F-16, which was considered basically the king of power. And G's.
Pratt & Whitney 229.
We had a GE, the GE engine. So this was the top of the line G puller that you could possibly fly.
Right. And
we were deployed, and we were doing a lot of air-to-air training, so the jets were clean. And I'm getting ready to go to weapons school, and we're out over the water, and I have this great idea. Hey,
brilliant. At the time.
We normally start our BFM engagements up at like 17,000, 18,000 feet, right?
Let's do a lot lower.
Let's go lower.
Oh, yeah,
let's
why
go
not?
way down there. Let's just see, because I'm curious just how this will impact the fight. I just want to know. I'm like a curious chimp at this point.
For you physics majors out there, the air is a lot thicker down low than it is up high.
Way more dense, and you're getting way more, just let's call it horsepower. But it's a lot of thrust. A lot of difference between those two altitudes. And so we start, I'm on offense. I start behind the guy, and fight's on. I literally did about a turn and a half at 9Gs.
and you're done. The airplane can outfly you.
Right. I just did this huge, gigantic circle around the other guy, and it was an abortion. And I basically had to knock it off. I'm like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever had. Let's never do this again. That's the part we laugh, but you could die. Those are...
Okay, so Mert, that brings up something else. We talked about the beer light in the squadron, and then I know you probably, aren't going to expand greatly on this, but if it happened to be like at the end of the week, usually the beer light was just prior to going in and maybe having a commander's call in the squadron or something like that. And you go in, and one of the big things that we used to do was in the 4th, we'd hand out the Bone Cranium Award.
Okay.
And, what's the Bone Cranium Award? Probably I think the greatest thing that occurs in any fighter squadron, doesn't matter what branch service or whatever, is this ability to try and learn from other mistakes. And so yours is, I've done it, and classic example where you come back in, and maybe at the end of the week, you're all sitting around having a drink, and you go, or maybe in the commander's call, they hey, who's done anything stupid this week? And you're flying a $35, $30, $40 million airplane. You're top of the heap. I don't want to admit that I ever did anything wrong. Did I ever do anything wrong flying an airplane? No, hell no, that kind of thing. No, it was actually really good because, everybody, there wouldn't be everybody raising their hand going, I'm such a good. No, it'd be one or two guys and go, let me tell you what I did this week. And it wasn't a really smart idea, and I learned so much from it. And so that maybe the next guy might go, he'll think twice about putting himself in the same situation and not being able to handle it,
right.
that kind of thing. So, I mean, that was a good example.
Yeah.
The difference between doing BFM in a GE motor up at 15,000 feet down at, say, 10 or something like that is night and day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we did talk about it. I don't know, we made it that quite a formality, but yeah, that's one of those things that I'm pretty sure I talked to a lot of folks afterwards about saying, this is just an all-out bad idea. Don't ever do that.
Well, and if I could, that's part. It kind of goes to the culture of being in a fighter squadron, which to me, and it's not an egotistical thing or anything like that, but very self-critiquing, right? I mean, we're about the hardest people on ourselves ever,
For sure.
and to translate that. And it's not saying bad things about the GA or the civilian flying world, but they're not used to that. And when you do it every day, you get into that culture where you go, anything I can learn from this, and personality aside or feelings aside, is I'm going to soak that up as best I can. And so rank didn't matter in most cases in a debrief. And it was just a matter of what can I learn from other people's mistakes or bad judgment or whatever, and you could tell people that was bad judgment, and he's not going to sit there and go, oh, I'm sorry. No, it's like, okay, I got it, now I'll fix it, I'll figure out how to do it better.
Yeah.